Okay, so like everything else with this journey, when things go wrong, sometimes you only have the option of going down the legal path. Now, I can only talk about my experience in Australia because that's what I'm familiar with, and it was in Adelaide of South Australia. I went to the Health Commissioner of South Australia, who was very, very helpful, and identified that, yes, the teeth needed fixing, but the practitioner didn't feel capable of doing them himself, and I would have to find someone else. I needed to find someone who could help me fix them. Where to start? I hope to find a register of dental practitioners with specialist profiles to help me narrow my search. I think I rang every dental association in Australia. Most of them were focused on insuring the general practitioners around the country, and there really wasn't anybody that was willing to help. I went to APRA, which is the Australian Practitioners Health Association. I think that's what it is. But basically, APRA is a policeman for medical practitioners out there. They investigate to see whether a practitioner has been derelict in his duty, and they will contact that practitioner with any relevant, rap over the knuckles. They do not and will not help the person that this has happened to. You cannot use any of their findings in any legal proceedings, nor can they help or refer you to a practitioner to fix the problems. So, having been to other prosthodontists, they simply said, well, get your money back. Well, that's all very well, except for the fact that if the current practitioner couldn't fix them, the likelihood is that they would cost me more than the original amount of money, and I would be severely out of pocket. I needed a financial claim to pay to have the teeth fixed, having used my existing money. So I had to go to a lawyer. So I started to phone lawyers. The standard reply was, it will cost you $20,000 to start the claim. Generally, if they decided to take your case on, they would do it on an ad hoc basis, so that if they felt as though you could win or they could win, then that $20,000 would come out of any settlement that you got, and the settlement may actually be less than $20,000, which means that you are liable for the rest. Now, given the current rate of lawyers, I know in Adelaide, that gives you at between $450 and $500 an hour. It gives you about 40 hours. Now, in those 40 hours, you might have, them talk to you for an hour for every email, and every phone call is charged at 6-minute increments. Obviously, 1/10 of your $500, which is $50 per 6 minutes. And they will charge you for everything. They will charge you for any paper that's printed, any admin work that's done, or any associates that work on your case. So pretty much at a maximum, you'll get 40 hours work. When the case can be complicated, that isn't a lot. A lawyer needs to determine whether you are eligible for one of these plans or one of their help, and so they will base it on negligence. Now, the problem with this term negligence is there's a difference between negligence and incompetence. So negligence really is like if a surgeon, is cutting you open and accidentally cuts something else, or, leaves a cotton bud or what have you inside your body, they're negligent. But if a dentist does it wrongly, so for example, you would have to establish that perhaps the implants were placed incorrectly, or that they were faulty, or that they failed, that could be regarded negligence. But if the implants themselves are healthy, as mine were, placed in kind of the wrong positions, for the design, but then what is put on top of the implants, according to design, could be regarded as incompetence rather than negligence. Now, there's a fine line between this. Is something that you would have to establish with your lawyer. So the first thing you've got to do is find another dentist or prosthodontist who's willing to state that fact. In a relatively small city like Adelaide, I can tell you that it's a very close-knit community of prosthodontists. I know that they do speaking engagements together, play golf, and they're all friends. So getting one to report against the other is a little difficult in a smaller community. However, if you need to go outside of your community and you need to go perhaps interstate or to find someone who is regarded as, what's the word I'm looking for, impartial, then you will be paying a minimum of $2,000 for that report, and you've got to be able to pay that up front. There is a litigation assistance fund available, but you'll pay 100% interest on the loan. Without that report, no case can go forward. There are medical practitioners who will do these paid-for legal reports specifically for negligence claims in their area of expertise, but they're only accessible through a lawyer. This is why you need to access a legal firm who deals with dental claims. Now, here's the kicker. When prosthodontists are using templates or intraoral scans with CAD programming that is designed for 80% of the population, and they all do it that way, and they're all trained to do it that way, that isn't negligence. That is inadequate training. It is perhaps incompetence, I don't know. But the other thing is, it also means that there is a fault in the design process or the parameters of the CAD programming that actually will create your teeth. Because the reality is, when you're using intraoral programming and then a computer program creates the teeth for your mouth, as these are in my mouth, and they're wrong, because everyone does it and because everyone is trained to do it that way, it's not negligence. It means there's something wrong with the programming. Now, when you are faced with this situation, do you sue the prosthodontist for doing what everyone else does with the same method of working out your occlusion through an 1890 articulator, but they're all doing it? There needs to be something looked at with the fundamentals of the actual design process. The type of claim is important. Rather than negligence, you may need a personal injury lawyer. This claim establishes whether you have been injured, in pain, or it has adversely affected your life. The time involved. Medical negligence or personal injury claims then become the arena of the dentist's insurance company, and this can take up to 3 years. So potentially you can be left with a dysfunctional mouth unless you can finance a fix yourself.